Coming down, feel it? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jasuranandana Braja Janaranjana Jasuranandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki, Sri Radha Giridhari ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajika Jaya Shodhara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace of Vaijnana Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajika Jaya Shodhara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Samaveda Bhakti ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. So this morning we read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 21. Maharaj Prithu instructing the citizens. This is text 39. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriyat Shilabhubhari Ki Jai. Yat Sevaya Yeshesha Guhasha Swarad Vipra Priyas Tushyati Kamanishwaraha Tadeva Tadharma Pararvanitai Sarvatmana Brahma Kulam Nishevyatam Yat Sevaya Shesha Guhaishaya Swarad Vipra Priyas Tushyati Kamanishwaraha Tadeva Tadharma Pararvanitai Sarvatmana Brahma Kulam Nisevyatam Yat Sevaya Shesha Guhaishaya Swarad Vipra Priyas Tushyati Kamam Ishwaraha Tadeva Tadharma Pararvanitai Sarvatmana Brahma Kulam Nisevyatam. Anyone like to chant? Sevaya Shesha Guhaishaya Swarad What, ladies? Let's see. Sevaya Shesha Guhaishaya Swarad Vipra Priyas Tushyati Kamanishwaraha Dharma Pararvanitai Sarvatmana Brahma Kulam Nisevyatam. Anyone else? Synonyms. Yet. Whose? Sevaya. By serving. Ajesha. Unlimited. Guha Ashaya. Dwelling within the heart of everyone. Swarat. But still fully independent. Vipra Priyaha. Very dear to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Tushyati. become satisfied. Kamam, of desires. Ishvaraha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat, that. Eva, certainly. Tat dharma parai, by following in the footsteps of the Lord. Vinitai, by humbleness. Sarva atmana, in all respects. Brahmakulam, the descendants of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Nishevyatam, always being engaged in their service. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is everlastingly independent and who exists in everyone's heart, is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage without reservation in the service of the descendants of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. For he is always very dear to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and they are always dear to him. Please repeat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is everlastingly independent and who exists in everyone's heart, is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage without reservation in the service of the descendants of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. For he is always dear to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and they are always dear to him. Purport. It is said that the Lord is most pleased when he sees one engage in the service of his devotee. He does not need any service from anyone because he is complete, but it is in our own interest to offer all kinds of services to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These services can be offered to the Supreme Person not directly, but through the service of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Paeche Ki Ba, which means that unless one serves the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, one cannot get liberation from the material clutches. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasadad. By satisfying the senses of the spiritual master, one can satisfy the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, this behavior is not only mentioned in the scriptures, but also followed by acharyas. Prithu Maharaj advised his citizens to follow the exemplary behavior of the Lord himself and thus engage in the service of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurunvinitam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is everlastingly independent and who exists in everyone's heart, is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage without reservation in the service of the descendants of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. For he is always dear to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and they're always dear to him. So this is a big secret. It's very nice. We have a few verses. Yesterday's, today's, tomorrow, all along the same theme about serving the devotees of the Lord. And that is what pleases the Supreme Personality of Godhead the most. Sometimes the example is given over and over and over again. In any situation where you have someone in charge, a leader, natural leader, we're first introduced to that dynamic when we're children. We got parents, right? There they are. There's your parents. Then you go to school, and you got your teachers, right? And then you have your community, and so on and so on and so on. And pleasing the superiors, that's what brings about success in life. On different levels, of course. But it's just natural. And if you're not pleasing to your parents, if you're not pleasing to your teachers, you're not pleasing to the leaders in society, whether it may be, whatever it may be, then life becomes very, very difficult. So where does this dynamic come from? It's described here in the verse. It's what actually is the reality of the absolute truth. Krishna is the supreme authority, it says here, everlastingly independent, and also there within everyone's heart. He's the Supreme Lord. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Adiradir Govinda Savakarana. He is the Supreme Lord. And pleasing the Lord, that brings us pleasure. That brings us pleasure. That's just the dynamic as it's set up. And, trying to be independent of that dynamic, you're never happy. Never happy. There's that example, but what's it called? The Indriya? The senses, the Indriya, the senses, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the hands, and all that, they all get really upset because they notice that whenever there's something to eat, they all have to put it in the mouth for the stomach. Right? Stomach gets all the good stuff. You say, think about it when you're sitting at breakfast prasadam today. They're popping all this stuff and it goes down your stomach. Oh, stomach gets everything. So the story is they all say, well, how come the stomach gets everything? Forget it. We're not feeding the stomach anymore. We're just going to eat it ourselves. So you can imagine what a scene that was at the prasadam hall, right? The hands are trying to eat, stuff it in the eyes, and but what happened is, the story goes, after a few days, they realized this is not working. They became weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. So they realized that by giving it to the stomach, then they actually become very, very nourished and satisfied and happy. That's just the way it's set up. So our philosophy is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by pleasing the Lord, one automatically becomes pleased, because we're part and parcel of the Lord. We're not independent. The Swarat in Sanskrit, Swarat, fully independent. That's Krishna. He's Swarat. He's independent. We're not independent. We're not independent in any way whatsoever to gain our own happiness. Not independent at all. So there's a lot can be said along those lines, but let's go along with the verse here. So as far as pleasing the Lord is brought up here, what pleases Krishna the most? Serving his devotees. That's the key. Serving the devotees of the Lord. Because Krishna really doesn't need anything. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't need anything. He's perfect and complete. He's Purnam. He's Atmaram. Aptakama. Whatever he wants, he just gets. So what does he need from us, from any living entity? He doesn't need a thing. So what pleases the Lord is when he sees his devotees being pleased. That's the dynamic. That's the dynamic. What's it? Rasavai Sa. Krishna has expanded himself. The Lord has expanded himself into unlimited living entities, or expanded unlimited living entities, simply for exchanging loving relationships. That's the Vaishnava understanding of reality. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? That actually the basis of reality is loving relationships. Not something impersonal, not something just energy or like that. It's what do they say? Good news for modern man. Is that the translation? Remember that? It was the first time they put the Bible back in the 70s, I think, into modern language. And they called it. There's a book called Good News for Modern Man. And they just put it in modern language instead of thee and thou and thou'st and all that kind of stuff. So this is our teachings to the world. This is the teachings of the Bhagavat and the Vaishnava philosophy, that all living entities are devotees of the Lord, and they're meant to be engaged in loving relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, what's wrong with that? If you think about it, that's a pretty good view of reality, right? That's an amazing view of reality. So it means relationships, and that's a tough one. Material relationships are filled with so many anomalies, and then spiritual relationships are based upon purity of heart. So that's a tough one, right? Because in the material world, all our relationships, again, so many anomalies. Either they're not working out, or even they work out, they end. It's over. Like that, it's over. And then in the spiritual relationships, it's based upon purity of heart. There can be no selfishness whatsoever in those relationships. So, but it's described here, Krishna himself Actually, it was the previous verse, wasn't it? About he attained his position by serving the devotees. His opulent position of the Supreme Person, all his opulence, he says, because he's serving the devotees of the Lord. And in the devotees themselves, great devotees, they're saying the same thing. Narottam Das Thakur is quoted in this purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says it. All the acharyas say the exact same thing. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada, yasya prasada nagati katopi. Real success in life comes when the devotees of the Lord are pleased. And what pleases the devotees? What kind of seva or service are we talking about here? Extra maha? What pleases the devotees? What pleases the devotees? What brings pleasure to devotees? Pushayana. Okay, is that a hint to end class early or what? Serving Krishna. Yeah, Krishna, serving Krishna. Devotees don't want anything for themselves, right? Devotees don't want anything for themselves either. Is that Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kam Sakaliya Santa, right? So they know that desires for bhukti, enjoying in this material world, mukti, even liberation, I'm sick of this world, I want to get out. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, yogic perfections, asanta. They won't bring me any happiness. I'll always be disturbed. So what's the last part of the verse? Krishna bhakti. Nishkam. Without any desire, just the desire to serve Krishna. That's nishkam. Shanta, complete peace. So that's the devotee's realization, just to be engaged in the devotional service. So serving the devotees means assisting them in their service of the Lord. And is it this purport? I may be one of the other, because I read all the different purports dealing with this, and saying the serving all the devotees, but of course the main devotee is the spiritual masters, the spiritual master. So the spiritual master is engaged and engages the disciples and followers in rendering service to the Lord, which means fulfilling the mission of the Lord. That's what the material world means as a mission. There's something that has to happen here. Spiritual world is just all going on automatically by Yoga Maya. But in the material world, there has to be a mission, and that mission is delivering the fallen souls. There's something that has to happen here in the material world. It's the reason Krishna and the devotees are here, and that's to deliver the fallen souls. It's a special project. Like that. We're all part of a special project of getting us out of this material world. So, now we have the big devotees. Then you have the not so big devotees, and you got the little devotees. I mean that in terms of not bodily size. That means in terms of their advancement in Krishna consciousness. So sometimes it's unfortunate, but we think, oh, this is referring to we got to serve the big devotees, but the little devotees. But there are some verses there, I didn't have a chance to look them up, that Krishna is actually most concerned about how we serve the little devotees. The neophyte devotees, the new devotees. That's very, very important to Krishna. That's what he's looking out for. So in other words, every single devotee is worthy of service, and that's a fact, but also the mentality of a truly advanced Vaishnava is that they feel themselves Chunadapi Sunichena Tororiva Suhishnanamani Damanadina Kirtaniya Sadahari. If one's feeling himself lower than the straw on the street, more tall than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to everyone, then wouldn't one be inclined to faithfully serve even the so-called smallest devotee? Because one would feel oneself lower than them. Right? So this practice of serving the Vaishnavas, that more than anything else, if you examine it, does more for removing our false ego and our false pride than anything else. And that's why, just like in Brahmacharya life, there was talk about all the different orders of society. Go to the Gurukula. It doesn't matter, you could be the son of the king, or you could be a son of a Brahmin or a Vaishya. It doesn't matter who you are. You go there, and everyone becomes a menial servant of the spiritual master, and one learns to become free from false pride and become humble, a servant, a humble servant, instead of always, that's very, very good training. It's very, very, very good training. Because that's the mentality that we require to go back home, back to Godhead. What is that? There's a verse in the Bible about something to the effect that the Lord is very, very... Christ said something about how you treat the least of my people. Is that the translation? How you treat the least of my people. In other words, the lowest, the fallen, the poor, the hungry, the suffering. He's looking for that. How do you treat them? The least of my people. Those are the kinds of people who will inherit the kingdom of God. So, it's a very, very, very important point here. So, we can't approach Krishna directly. That's impossible, even to think such a thing. That's called sahajiya. Take it very, very cheaply. Oh, I'm serving Krishna directly. No. What is that verse? Das anudas? Servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the... Many times of the Lord of the Gopis. So, yeah. So I'm very, 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 very distant, and just an opportunity to render some service to a servant of a servant of the... That's the mentality. That's an exalted mentality. Who was it? Was that reading this, or? I might have just been reading this, but heard it recently that our philosophy is down, not up. Vaishnava philosophy is down. In other words, at the feet of those who are servants of the servants of the servant, not like going up, like here I'm on top. So the further down we go in the sense of being the servant of the servant of the servant, then we're actually quite Krishna conscious, instead of thinking everyone should be serving me, or I only serve one or two people above me, everyone else is below me. So that's the humble mood of the devotees of the Lord. And that's one reason Prabhupada mentioned about reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's because you can understand how devotees behave. You read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the devotees, how they interact with each other, always humbly serving each other, and the mission of the Lord. So this is our mood. It's complete antithesis of the mood of the material world. So it's a tough one, but it is the nature of the soul to be eternal servant of Krishna, which means Krishna and his devotees. And devotees are very, very, very happy, even in the spiritual world, the idea of approaching Krishna directly. No, I just want to render some service, push you towards Krishna. Not that, hey, wait, just like if sometimes there's a line, and everyone wants pushing to get to the front of the line, right? You seen that? Whether it's prasadam or a ticket or this or that. It's like whenever I do pujas, after the end of the puja, we distribute prasadam. And I say, don't worry, I know, there's no such thing as a line in India. So they all just kind of like, right? There's no such thing, I know, there's no such thing as a line. They all just kind of like, they don't form a line, right? It's not a word in the vocabulary. It's just, you just go. So, devotees thinking, no, you first. You take prasad, you first, like that, out of humility. So, yeah, Okay. Okay, there you go. So, thank you. So we can open it up for any questions or comments now. Of course, silence means agreement. I guess that's a good thing. Yes. Is there a microphone?
You said that Krishna is most concerned when we serve the new devotees, and so sometimes it's hard to know when someone is a new devotee at times, but that does not matter.
I can hear that.
It's okay. Disregard my comment. Okay. When we said when we're ready to offer our respect to everyone in order to remove false pride and false ego, and you said how you treat the least of my people, Krishna said that, and that devotees are humble, and so at least for me, like the way I try to help new people that come to the temple, it's to making aware of certain things, just not because I'm judging you harshly or anything, but that's my way of helping. So I think at times it's difficult because it's taken out of context. So because let's say, how can we help someone that doesn't want to help themselves? So that's basically my question. How can I? Because I don't know how to do it. Like, I try, but I do not know, because their will is not aligned with that. So, and it's hard not to get a little kind of frustrated, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. But the intention is good. So how can you can comment on that?
I'm getting from your question. One is, how can you help someone who doesn't want to be helped? Really can't. On a certain level, you can't. You have to want it. But the point is, then there's ways to, in Krishna consciousness, so many people, why is the distribution of prasadam in the holy name is to purify them to the point where then they start wanting it. You know, it's like a trick. So, but that's one thing, is if someone doesn't want Krishna consciousness, you can't force it on them. But you can try to trick them. Just give them prasadam, right? Give them prasadam, right? The prasadam in the holy name. That's our trick. Just keep eating prasadam, and then gradually there's an awakening, because it purifies the heart. The heart has to be purified. Somehow or other, the heart has to be purified. And then there's awakening. Just like that very nice verse about kamadidam. I've been serving my senses for so long without any benefit whatsoever. But now there's an awakening of intelligence, and I understand that I should be serving you, Krishna, and not serving my senses. There's an awakening of intelligence. Where's that come from? One heart has to be a little bit purified. So we have to figure out somehow or other to help people purify their hearts, and automatically then there's a little bit of interest, and then you fan that. But if someone, as even Prahlad Maharaj told his father right to his face, Patirna Krishna Paratosvato Va. He said, you can't become Krishna conscious. You can't. By yourself, with the help of others, or together. You never become Krishna conscious. It's right there. You can't. It has to come from within. It has to come from, otherwise it's like, it's just not working. It's not going to work. Is that okay? Balaram?
Did he have a question?
I have a question. I don't know how important it is, but I was wondering if it's ever been thought of or done that some of the devotees who have been here a long time could possibly have a little small class just to teach us how to sing Sanskrit. Because I just fumble every day, and I'm just trying so hard to get this whole thing. And that would be something that would make me feel a little more part of it. Maybe that would help new devotees, the least.
Yeah. You can talk to Balaram after that. He's in charge of the ashram. I mean, we have, you're coming, if you come to all the kirtans and all that, but you're right, to sit down maybe just one-on-one with someone and just double-checking your pronunciation and so on. But the daily coming to classes, learning how to recite, or the Guru Puja and so on, that's where we learn, but also above and beyond that, to sit down maybe and, yeah. Okay.
In the purport, there's a... Prabhupada mentions, the song Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada, and he says, which I thought was interesting, because a lot of the times he doesn't translate it like he translated in this purport. He just translated it as, if you please the spiritual master, then you please Krishna. That's how he usually translates it. But in the purport, he says, if you please the senses of the spiritual master, then that's you please the senses of Krishna. So maybe you could comment on that. A little.
Well, it's very simple about the senses. It means the Guru's senses are all engaged. His senses of, what do they call it? Acquiring knowledge and movement. All the senses are engaged fully in the Lord's service. So, and that's the Guru's senses. So by satisfying that means you're assisting him in his service of the Lord. That's what it means. You're assisting him in his service of the Lord. Now, there's two things. There's the Vani and Vapu. Now, obviously, the Vapu means you're serving the spiritual master with some simple seva. Maybe just like Maharaj comes, you cook for him, Yuraj Maharaj or something like that. You do different things to help, just some rendering some bodily service. But more important beyond that is the Vani the instructions, which is the mission of spreading Krishna consciousness. That pleases the spiritual master even more. His senses are engaged in spreading Krishna consciousness, so assist him, which means, what are we? We're a bunch of senses, you can say. In one hand, that's who we are. Our senses, they're engaged in serving the Lord, so assist that. Assist the spiritual master. Like that. Please. Good.
I'm genuinely puzzled by this, and I was just wondering what your take was in the translation, that the Lord is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage without reservation in service of the descendants of Brahmins and Vaishnavas.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where that descendants comes in.
The Kulam?
I know it's the Kulam,
Family?
but don't we have to serve the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, or we have to look for their descendants and serve them?
Who's the English editor here? Well, Brahma Kulam, the descendants of Brahma, they're coming down, so pick anywhere along the line there. It doesn't mean like, I can't serve you, I have to serve your kids. That isn't what it means. It's coming down.
Okay.
Now, there's a whole, I think it's the next verse, talks about the verse from the Varaha Purana, about Kali Yuga and the Brahmins and so on, so I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, for that one. That's tomorrow's class or the next day, It's not all descendants of Brahmins and Vaishnavas are Paka.
Okay.
And there's a reason for it given in one of the Puranas. So, there you go. So you can get into that one.
So I'll be on the spot. Okay, I get it.
It's all explained in the report.
Thank you for your incredibly solid, nice class, Prabhu. I'm impressed. Very much impressed.
Thanks, Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, Jai Prabhupada. If I can make a couple comments, the Sanskrit, if you look in the back of the Bhagavad Gita, it has a Sanskrit pronunciation guide. That helped me tremendously. And if I can make one more comment over there, the externals are, distribute prasad, distribute books. There's the internal that I thought, if I could mention, Prabhupada's guru, when he sent his departure address to his advanced devotees that went to Europe to preach, he says near the end, the guaranteed process to bring the fallen conditioned souls to the lotus feet of Krishna is Turnadapi Samichena, the third Chikshastika verse, being more humble than the blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and willing to be all respectful to others. In this way one can very easily and always chant the holy name of the Lord. So that, Vaisheshika asked my guru, what is your secret? And he gave the answer, something along the lines is, under all circumstances, remain blissful. So, these are things that I'm really trying to apply in my life, because it's not productive to get frustrated in trying to help people. It doesn't help the situation. And they actually see you as like you're getting frustrated. Well, maybe this process doesn't work. But if we remain blissful under all circumstances by applying that third Chikshastika verse, then people just, you're always blissful. I'm tired of being miserable. Let me become blissful too. It just brings people in. So I just want, if it's okay to share that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Along those lines, the one story I always remember is, I forget who the devotee was who was relating this story about Jayananda. Now, when he came to the temple there in San Francisco, Jayananda Prabhu was emptying the trash out back in the alley, and he was so blissful, and the devotee thought, well, if the devotee emptying trash is so happy, these people really have something here. And that attracted him to go inside and find out about Krishna consciousness, because he thought, the guy emptying the trash is so happy, how about everyone else? Something like that. And there's one last thing I thought about when I was reading this purport is, there's a saying in the material world that behind every great man, there is a woman, right? So in Krishna consciousness, behind every great devotee, there is other great devotees that they've serving very, very nicely. That's the key to greatness in spiritual life. You'll find you read about any great devotee, they're fully surrendered to their spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, and that's where they get their greatness. In fact, the previous verse is saying, even Krishna himself is saying, that's how I become so famous, is because of my service to the devotees. So in the spiritual world, it's a spiritual line. It's like that. Behind every great devotee, you'll find their full surrender to their spiritual master and predecessors in the Vaishnavas. Yes.
Yeah, just along those lines, in Radhanath Swami's book, I think it was Journey Within. Somebody asked him that question, that, you've been a brahmachari your whole life, you're a sannyasi, but they say behind every great man there's a great woman, so, what's your answer for this one? Yeah, where is she? And then he said, the answer is Srimati Radharani. So
Yes, the best of
that was nice.
Yeah.
Anyways.
On that ecstatic note, we can end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, srimadbhagavatam.